Now, we also have the new guys, right? Over the month of March, former All-Stars like Blake Griffin, LaMarcus Aldridge, Andre Drummond, they've all made their way from buyouts to contenders. You got the Nets and the Lakers, of course, getting all the headlines there. Aldridge expected to make his Nets debut tonight. Even before these moves, as Kirk Goldsberry noted, nearly half of all active NBA players who've ever been named first-team All-NBA now play for either the Lakers, Clippers, or Nets. So, Malika, do you think the way the buyout system now is working as it should?
Well, here's what I'll say, Rachel. I understand why maybe management, general managers in smaller markets are looking around saying, hey, wait a second, potentially this isn't fair the way that it is shaking out. Our Adrian Wojnarowski had a great piece about this on ESPN Plus today. And I want to read some numbers that I found just as striking as the numbers that you shared from Kirk Goldsberry just a second ago, that over the past 15 seasons, Rachel, 39 buyout players averaged 2 games and just 10 minutes in the playoffs, and 20 signed to top 15 markets, but the other 19, they signed to everywhere else. So actually it is shaking out to be a little bit more 50-50, but I do understand the frustration and the optics. And yes, this is a little bit of a loophole that maybe isn't working out as initially intended, but as Wojnarowski reported, this is something that, Zach, I'm sure you have more to say about this, should probably be addressed in the next looking at the CBA.
Well, look, in terms of addressing it, I haven't heard any solution that the players union would ever go for, because the bottom line is this is about player movement and players being able to choose where they're going to go. So if you start limiting, like, you can't do this, you can't do that, the union is not going for that. Second of all, teams with cap space and trade exceptions and money to spend can already try to entice these players with more money than the glamour teams can offer them. The Knicks could have paid Andre Drummond like $12 million a year if they wanted Andre Drummond. And look, as Malika said, the buyout guys, they rarely have any impact on who wins the title anyway. We're blowing this way out of proportion, and they tend to go to good teams. Now, is there some overlap sometimes between good teams and glamorous cities? Sometimes yes, sometimes no. But it's the quality of the team that matters. The other thing is, these teams don't have to buy these guys out. I don't buy the argument that small market GMs are out there cowering in fear of agents who are never going to forgive them for not buying out Andre Drummond. And on top of that, the league has incentivized bad teams to keep good players because they've flattened the lottery odds and created a play-in tournament. And the messaging of that is, San Antonio, if you think LaMarcus Aldridge is good, keep him. Cleveland, if you think Andre Drummond is good, yeah, you got Jared Allen, keep him anyway. And these teams are doing the opposite anyway, and the league has sort of incentivized them to keep those guys, and they're not doing it. And the other thing is, the last thing, we're hearing all this outrage this week about LaMarcus Aldridge in Brooklyn, Blake Griffin in Brooklyn, and blah, blah, blah. We're not hearing anything about Gorgui Dieng going to San Antonio, and we're not hearing anything about the Oklahoma City Thunder and Al Horford basically saying, hey, it's been nice having you. We're not going to buy you out. We're not going to trade you. We just don't want to win games, so why don't you just sort of become a coach for a little while? No one is outraged about that. No one is clamoring for Al Horford to get back on the court because it's a small market team in Oklahoma City that is the victim of this larger thing. I just think this is being blown way out of proportion.
Well, there's been a backlash, right? So there's a lot of fans who have said, oh, huge backlash. The Nets are loaded up. This isn't fair. Here we go again, another super team, and then it's boring. We know who wins. We can't, we can't really follow the games in the same way. And then there's been a backlash to the backlash. You've had a lot of people who cover the NBA saying, oh, these fans, they don't understand. Guys don't really impact the finals, or they don't really impact the playoffs in that same way. And I think maybe what the initial fans who are upset, what they're feeling is, it's kind of like getting an SAT tutor, right? If you get an SAT tutor when you're in high school to get into college, that's not going to make the difference about whether you get into college or not. If you don't study yourself for the SATs, you don't do well. SATs are just one part of your college admissions package. So it's not the thing, kind of like Blake Griffin is not the thing that is going to win you the NBA title. But if you are a kid who has had every advantage, every privilege, have grown up going to the best schools, surrounded by the best people with the best books and the best tutors, and then you get the SAT tutor also, I understand people being like, come on, don't you already have everything else? And I think that's what fans sometimes are feeling with this. It's not that fans are just so casual. They don't understand that Blake Griffin isn't the Blake Griffin of 5 or 7 years ago. I think there is just some frustration in some markets, and that's why you are not hearing this about Gorgui or anyone else, of just, don't they already have enough? Do they have to have that too? And that is a balance the NBA is going to have to get into a little bit.